Hey everybody, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2015 GMC Acadia, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster diode wiring kit. But before we get into that, why don't we check it out and make sure to work for you. Before we jump right in, I figured it'd be useful just to kind of touch base and refresh yourselves on the main components that we're going to need to flat tow our Acadia down the road in the first place. And the first part is going to be the base plate. That's going to provide us with a solid and reliable attachment point. That way we can hook our tow bar up to it. So tow bar will be a set component. It's going to plug into the front of your base plate and connect to the back of your motor home. So it's going to be the physical link that's actually pulling your vehicle. The third main part will be safety cables, and those will clip onto the base plate into the hitch of your motor home and just be a secondary connection in case of an accidental disconnect. It'll keep everything paired together. The fourth main component will be tow bar wiring, and what that's going to do, you'll have a cable that'll come from the back of your motor home, plug into the front of your vehicle, and that's going to allow it to transfer all the lighting functions, keeping you safe and legal. And last but not least, the fifth main part will be a supplemental braking system, and what that's going to do is apply the brakes and your GMC whenever you hit the brakes in your motorhome, helping to bring you to a more predictable and complete stop. One of the best things about a setup like this is how easy it's going to be to use whenever you're ready to hook up, as opposed to some of the other lighting kits available. So for example, magnetic lighting, that's something you have to set up every single time and then take off whenever you're not flat towing and then store it. You got a big box of wires and lights. Just kind of a pain, not really ideal, at least in my opinion. Once this is installed, all you're gonna have to do is plug it in, essentially. So one end you will plug right into the front of your Acadia, and then the other end into your motorhome. So this is a tester. We're gonna pretend it's our motorhome today, but it'll do the same thing. It'll get the point across, you know. So it'll plug into that. And then whenever you turn on your tail lights or hit your blinker, which I will do, it'll transfer to the back of our vehicle. So why don't we go back there and check it out. So I had the left turn signal going on our motorhome, and it's sending it back here to our Acadia. So people around you will know your intentions. So you'll get both your turn signals, your brake lights, and your tail lights. So you'll have all your bases covered there. With this kit, when you use the diodes, you're not even going to really know the kit's installed. You know, with the exception of a little plug at the front, you're not going to be able to tell a difference, you know, as it was from the factory. And because it uses them diodes, what that's going to do is keep your factory electrical system protected. So if a short or something like that were to occur on your motorhome side, you know it's not going to mess up your GMC's wiring. I do just want to touch base on the different types of diode kits available, and really the big difference between them all is going to be what type of umbilical that you get, if at all. And so these are designed for certain situations. So for example, this kit here, it has a coiled cable, 7 to 6. You'd use this if you have a tow bar that doesn't have channels in it. That way, you know, this will stay up off the ground when you're going straight, but then stretch out and give you that length that you need whenever you're making those turns. There's another kit, essentially the same as this. It's just a 7-way round for your motorhome and a 4-way round for the front of your vehicle. Rarely see this one because if you're going to install this anyway, you might as well just go with this kit. It's the same amount of work, and you get the 2 extra pins. So if you were to ever want to, you know, use a charge line or something like that, you could easily do it. And then there's other kits that have like a straight cable here, like this one, 7 to 6. And you would use this if your tow bar has channels in it. So for example, the Roadmaster Falcon All-Terrain is a good example. It has channels along the side of the tow bar arms, and you'd want something like this. That way you can utilize them channels, right, and run your cable through there. There's one that's a hybrid, but you'd also use for tow bars that have channels. So it's straight and then kind of coiled on the motorhome side. And this one's really long, so if you have a super long tow bar and an adapter or something like that, this might be a better option for you. And then there's another kit that has a 4-way flat connector to a 4-way flat. Pretty rare that we use these, but it's an option for you. And then there's another kit that I like to call kind of the bare bones kit. It comes with the diodes and the wiring and some little ins and outs. And it doesn't come with an umbilical or the connector plug. And you would use that in the event if a tow bar came with those components. So some of the more premier ones do. For example, the Roadmaster Nighthawk. That comes with a cable and the connector already. So if you end up going with something like that, there's no need to buy a wiring kit that has an extra cable because you're not going to use it. So that kit would be a good example of a situation, you know, if you had that type of tow bar that had those components already. Other than that, at the end of the day, you know, this would be the type of kit that I'd go with personally. It's easy to use and it's reliable. You know, we've had a lot of good luck with them. As far as the installation goes, it's really not too bad or complicated per se. It is time consuming just having to route wires and things like that, but as long as you stay focused, it's something you should be able to do. With that in mind, why don't we go ahead and start to install it now. So your beginner installation, we're going to be here at the front of our Acadia, and I do have the fascia removed, and that's because we're doing this the same time that we're doing our base plate, which is what I recommend. But this can be done with it on, just a little bit tougher. The first thing you want to do though is take one end of your wire and kind of just run it down here to where it's going to mount up on the bracket. Take your dust cover, slide that on, and we can start to separate the ends of our wires. So just carefully cut in between them and start to peel them back a few inches like that. I want to mention too, now would be a good time to install a charge line or anything else that gets connected down here if you're happening to use one. We're not, so we're good, but we're going to strip back the insulation a little bit. Give that wire a twist. That way when we plug it into our connector plug, it'll be, we'll have a good connection. So I'm going to do the same thing for our remaining ends here. Now we can get our connector plug ready. So you're going to have terminals in here with set screws, and what you want to do is just back the set screw out almost all the way. Try not to pull it all the way out because it's kind of a pain to get back in and easy to lose. But they're going to be labeled, and this one will be TM for tail light, brown wire will go to it. This one here, GD for ground, so white wire that. You have LT for left turn, so yellow wire there, and RT for right turn, so the green wire will go there. So we'll take the appropriate wire and place it into the correct terminal. We'll hold it down in there and then tighten down the set screw. I'll do that same thing for our remaining wires. That's what the wires all look like once you have them hooked up. And I'll slide on our dust cover. And eventually you can come back here and seal all this up and everything to protect it from corrosion. I like to do that at the very end though. That way if there's any issues, you know, we're not dealing with a big mess in there. And for now, just to keep this in place, I will secure it to the base plate. Now we can start to route our wiring. So it just comes off our bracket there, kind of runs along the base plate and runs in through this opening where it kind of comes into the engine compartment, essentially just behind our headlight. Where it comes up right here, what we're going to do is ground out our white wire, and it turns out in the corner there's a factory ground, which is going to work perfect. So I kind of just separated our white wire from the rest of our harness, and I'll cut it to length. And the remaining portion of the white wire, you want to hold on to that because we're going to be using it here in a little while. But we'll strip the insulation back. We're going to take a ring terminal, place that onto the bare end of the wire, crimp it down, and then the factory ground, it's going to be a 10mm nut. Take our ground wire, put the bolt through the ring terminal, back through the factory wire there. We'll just tighten it back down. Now that this is hooked up, I'll go ahead and continue to run the remaining portion of our wiring harness towards the back of the vehicle. Once I have that complete, I'll show you the path that I took to get back there. So it's going to come up through here and drop down straight along the back of the firewall to the underside of our vehicle. Underneath the vehicle now, our wiring drops down right here in this area. And just when you're routing, do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts. I just essentially followed our brake lines. That's usually a good path to take where the factory runs stuff, you know, it's out of the way. So here it is, zip tied it along the way. And like I said, I essentially just followed our factory brake lines that run back through there. And then right here goes up and over our subframe. And, you know, pay attention to this spot, keep it zip tied up good because you got some moving components here, you know. Where it comes off here, and then what I did, I separated the green wire. That green wire will run over to the passenger side. So we have our yellow and brown. This will run up into the taillight pocket, but if you remember that length of white wire that we saved, I taped one end to it, that way it'll run up there. And then the white wire, the other end of it, is going to go along with the green wire to the passenger side. So we'll let these hang here. Our green and the other end of the white wire just runs along the back of our hitch. Where it comes up through here. And it's kind of tricky to see, but right up in this area, that's where it's going to go up into the taillight pocket. Now here at the back, we can open up our hatch and get our taillights removed. So we'll take both of them out the same way. We're going to do this one. Take a small screwdriver and kind of pop them caps out. And then behind there, we're going to have a 7mm screw. We'll run those out. We can grab our tail light, work it out, and we're going to disconnect it here. So there's this red tab. You can kind of push that back. And with these, what I like to do, because sometimes they're a little tricky, I like to just come in from this side, put a little pressure up on it, and separate it. And with the light disconnected, we can set it off to the side. So I went ahead and just kind of pulled some of this tape off of our wiring, and I tested them. What we're looking for is our stoplight signal and our taillight signal. So what I came up with, the all yellow wire, that's going to be for our stop and turn. And the purple wire here, that's going to be for our taillight signal. So what we'll do is cut these in half. And then on each end, a total of 4 ends, on each end you're going to strip back the insulation a little bit. Give that wire a twist. Take one of the blue terminals, slide that over, and crimp it down. I'm going to do the same thing for our 3 remaining ends here. With all the ends connected here, we can now take our diodes. You're going to plug these in. You want the single terminal labeled out to face towards the connector plug that'll plug into our taillight. The same deal there, and then we'll just go color for color. Then once these are hooked up, we can get the new wiring that we ran underneath our vehicle up into this area. So to get our wires up, I took a pull wire. It's just a piece of tubing, ran it down through the opening in our taillight pocket where it comes out the bottom, and I taped on our wires. So you can use a coat hanger, a metal coat hanger straightened out, anything along those lines that'll work. And then we can feed our wiring up into the taillight pocket. And we got some extra here, so I'll probably trim it down a little bit, and then we can start to get our terminals hooked up to it. With our new wires up here, the yellow one I stripped back, crimped on a blue terminal, and since that's going to be our stop and turn, we're going to plug that into the diode that has the factory yellow wire. So pretty straightforward there. As far as the white and brown wire goes, we're going to do something a little bit different. You're going to take both of those ends and twist them together nice and tight. And then you're going to put on the yellow terminal that they give you. And that's why we ran the white wire over to the passenger side as well. That's going to be a jumper, so it's going to take our taillight signal from here and shoot it over to the passenger side. So that one will plug right into that diode. So I took off the adhesive backing off of the diodes and just stuck them together. And now we can resecure our taillight the opposite way that we removed it. Over here on the passenger side, we essentially did everything the exact same way. So there is a slight difference though. That's the color of the factory wires. So the factory green wire, that's going to be for our stop and turn signal. So we plugged our new green wire into that diode. The factory brown wire with the small white stripe, that's going to be our taillight signal. So we plugged in our new white wire into that diode. Just like the other side, secured our diodes and everything else. And with this all hooked up, we'll go ahead and get our taillight put back in. Now we can test our wiring to make sure it's working properly. I just hooked up to a test box which simulates a motorhome. You can use your motorhome, but keep in mind if it has any issues, it could mislead you into thinking it's something you did on this side. But with that said, we'll turn on our taillights, our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brake lights. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster diode wiring kit on our 2015 GMC Acadia.